The massive ship hung in space like a dark mountain. Its black metal hull stretched for miles, covered in spikes and weapon ports that glowed red in the void. This was the Destroyer of Worlds, flagship of the Vorkan Empire, and today it hosted the most important meeting in the galaxy. Admiral Zektar stood 12 feet tall on the bridge, his reptilian scales gleaming under the harsh lights. His yellow eyes swept across the assembled alien representatives, each one smaller and weaker than himself. The other species in the Galactic Confederation knew their place. They feared the Vorkans, and fear kept the galaxy in order. "Look at them," Zektar growled to his lieutenant. "Soft creatures from soft worlds. Without us, they would have destroyed themselves long ago." The meeting began as it always did. The tribute reports. The Meridians, fish-like beings from water, worlds, offered rare minerals from their deep ocean mines. The Kristek, living rocks that barely reached Zektar's knee, presented energy crystals that powered half the galaxy. The Alterians, pale and thin from low-gravity worlds, brought food from their vast farms. Each species bowed before the Vorkan admiral. Each one spoke of gratitude for Vorkan protection. None dared to meet his eyes. "The galaxy remains peaceful, under Vorkan strength," announced Chancellor Vexka, Zektar's second-in-command. "No species has challenged our authority in 200 years. The void demons stay hidden in the dark spaces between stars, afraid to face our power." Zektar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. The void demons were just stories now, myths used to frighten children. If such creatures had ever existed, they were long gone or too scared to show themselves. Far across the galaxy, Captain Jake Collins sat in the captain's chair of the Earth ship Horizon. The bridge was small compared to alien standards, built for efficiency rather than intimidation. Collins was a stocky man with graying hair and scars from the Martian colonial wars. He had spent 30 years in Earth Space Forces, but today would change everything. "Captain, we're picking up some strange signals," said Lieutenant Lisa Grant from the communications station. She was young, barely 25, but one of the best code breakers in the fleet. "It's encrypted, but the patterns are unlike anything in our databases." Collins walked over to her station. "How far out?" "The signals are coming from the Kepler system, about 40 light-years away." "But sir, there's something else. The encryption is mathematical, not random. Someone built this to keep others out." Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her science station. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes who had spent years studying alien possibilities. Earth had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Today might give them the answer. "Let me run this through the quantum computers," Foster said. "If this is from an intelligent species, we need to know what they're saying." Hours passed as the computer systems worked to break the alien code. Collins paced the bridge, knowing that first contact protocols existed but hoping they would never need them. Earth had enough problems without adding aliens to the mix. "Got it," Grant announced. "Captain, you need to see this." The main screen, filled with translated text and images. Collins read in silence, his face growing pale. The Galactic Confederation, hundreds of species, faster than light travel, worlds beyond counting, and ruling over all of them, the Vorkan Empire. "My God," Foster whispered. "Look at these biological readings. Most of these species evolved on worlds with gravity less than half of Earth's. Their atmospheric pressure, temperature ranges, everything is more stable than our planet." Collins studied the tactical data. Vorkan warships that could destroy planets, weapons that could turn stars into bombs, technology that made Earth's best ships look like children's toys. "Sir," Grant said quietly, "there's more. Look at this territorial map." The display showed Vorkan expansion routes spreading across the galaxy like a disease. Red lines marked conquered systems. Yellow zones showed planned invasions. And there, highlighted in the computer's analysis, was Earth's position directly in the path of future expansion. "They don't know we exist yet," Collins realized, "but they're coming this way." Back on the Destroyer of Worlds, Admiral Zektar was demonstrating why the Vorkans ruled the galaxy. He picked up a steel bar as thick as a man's arm and crushed, it between his claws like it was made of clay. The alien representatives watched in terror, remembering why their species bowed to Vorkan might. "This is why the galaxy needs us," Zektar declared. "We are the only Deathworlders, the only species strong enough to survive on worlds that would kill others. We evolved on Kardesh, where the gravity crushes bones and the storms tear metal apart. We are what the galaxy fears, and fear keeps peace." The Alterian representative, a pale creature named Yilnas, nodded quickly. "Yes, Admiral. Your strength protects us from the dangers of the void." Zektar enjoyed the fear in the alien's voice. The Vorkans had built their empire on a simple truth: might made right. They were stronger, tougher, and more violent than any other known species. The galaxy had learned to accept this reality. "Increase the tribute demands by 20%, Zektar ordered. "Our expansion fleet needs more resources. There are new systems to explore, new worlds to claim for the Empire." The alien representatives agreed immediately. They had no choice. The Vorkans could destroy their worlds with a single command. On the horizon, Collins made the hardest decision of his career. "Grant, send a priority message to Earth Command. Use the quantum relay, maximum encryption. Tell them we've made contact. With hostile alien forces and Earth is in immediate danger, sir." "Should we try to establish communication with these Vorkans?" Foster asked. Collins looked at the tactical display again. Vorkan ships that could destroy continents, weapons beyond human understanding, an empire built on fear and violence. Yet, he decided, first we need to understand what we're dealing with, and we need to prepare Earth for what's coming. As the horizon changed course toward home, carrying news that would shake human civilization, Admiral Zektar continued his speech to the Galactic Confederation. He spoke of Vorkan's strength, of their destiny to rule the stars, of their role as the galaxy's only true warriors. None of them knew that in a small yellow star system, another species of Deathworlders was preparing to challenge everything the Vorkans believed about strength and survival. The galaxy was about to learn that the Vorkans were not the only ones who had evolved in hell. 3 months had passed since Captain Collins first intercepted the alien signals. Earth buzzed with activity as governments worked together for the first time in decades. The threat from space had united humanity in ways that wars and disasters never could. Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of the battleship Terra Prime, watching construction crews finish the last defensive platforms around Jupiter. She was a tough woman who had fought in 3 different wars, but nothing had prepared her for this. Earth was about to meet aliens, and those aliens conquered planets for breakfast. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up movement in the outer system," reported Lieutenant Commander Paul Adams. He was a big man, 6 feet 4 inches of solid muscle, chosen for this mission because humans needed to look strong when meeting the Vorkans. Morrison nodded. "How many ships?" 5 vessels moving in formation toward Jupiter. They're not trying to hide." Dr. Amy Foster checked her readings from the science station. "Their ships are giving off massive energy signatures. Whatever powers those things is beyond our current technology." The Vorkan scout fleet moved through space like hunting sharks. Commander Vashko stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Blood Talon, studying the primitive solar system ahead. His yellow eyes gleamed with anticipation. Another species to conquer, another world to add to the empire. "Sensors detect artificial structures around the gas giant," reported his tactical officer. "Primitive orbital platforms and small vessels." Vashko laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "Good. At least they have basic space travel. It makes the conquest more interesting when they can fight back a little." The commander was typical of his species, 7 feet tall with scales like armor, plating, claws that could tear through steel, and muscles built by evolution on a world that crushed weaker beings. He had conquered 12 different species in his career, and each one had surrendered within hours of seeing Vorkan's strength. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the aliens," the communications officer announced. "Put it on screen. Let's see what these creatures look like." Captain Collins appeared on the Vorkan display, sitting calmly in his command chair. Vashiko studied the human with interest. The alien looked soft compared to Vorkon standards, but there was something in its eyes that seemed different from other conquered species. "I am Captain Jake Collins of the Earth vessel Horizon," the human said. "We welcome you to our solar system and hope for peaceful contact between our peoples." Vashko was surprised. Most species begged for mercy when they first saw Vorkons. This human spoke like an equal, showing no fear or submission. "I am Commander Vashko of the Vorkon Empire," he replied. "Your system now belongs to us. Prepare to surrender your weapons and submit to Imperial authority." Collins smiled, which confused the Vorkon commander. Fear he understood, anger he expected. But this calm confidence was new. "I'm afraid that won't be possible," Collins said. "However, we're willing to meet and discuss terms. There's a neutral point near Jupiter where we can arrange first contact." The audacity amazed Vashko. This soft creature was actually negotiating with him. It would make breaking their spirit more satisfying. 2 hours later, the first meeting between humans and Vorkons took place on a small space station hastily built for the occasion. Commander Vashko arrived with 2 guards, expecting to intimidate the humans into immediate surrender. Instead, he found Sergeant Paul Adams waiting in the docking bay. The human stood at attention, wearing a simple military uniform that somehow made him look more dangerous rather than less. Behind him stood Dr. Foster and 3 other humans, all calm and professional. Vashko towered over the humans, his scales gleaming under the station lights. His claws clicked against the metal floor as he walked. The other species in the galaxy would have been cowering by now. "So," Vashko said, "you are the leaders of this world. You will kneel before Vorkon might and accept your new masters." Adams looked up at the alien commander without flinching. "With respect, sir. We don't kneel to anyone, but we're happy to talk as equals." The words hit Vashko like a physical blow. No one had called themselves equal to a Vorkon in 3 centuries. "Equals," he roared. "Look at me, soft creature. I am death incarnate. I am a warrior from a world that would kill you in minutes." To demonstrate his point, Vashko picked up a titanium support beam from the construction materials nearby. The metal was as thick as a man's leg and designed to hold up buildings. He crushed it between his claws like paper, the screech of tearing, metal filling the air. The humans watched without fear. Dr. Foster even took readings with her scanner, studying the display of strength like a scientist rather than a victim. "Impressive," Adams said calmly. Then he walked over to another support beam, gripped it in both hands and snapped it cleanly in half. The silence that followed was deafening. Vashko stared at the broken metal, then at the human who had broken it. This was impossible. Humans looked so weak, so fragile. "How?" Vashko whispered. Dr. Foster stepped forward with her scanner results. "Commander, may I explain? Your species evolved on a high-gravity world, probably around 1.8 times Earth standard. Your bone density and muscle structure reflect that adaptation. However, Earth's gravity is actually higher than your homeworld, and our evolutionary pressures were more extreme." She paused, letting the information sink in. "Your species developed strength to survive your environment. Ours developed strength to survive each other. Earth has been at war with itself for thousands of years. We didn't just adapt to our world. We had to become the most dangerous thing on it." Vashko felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. These humans matched Vorkon's strength but showed no signs of the stress that high-gravity environments usually caused alien species. They breathed easily in what should have been toxic atmosphere levels for most galactic species. "This changes nothing," he declared, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "Strength alone does not make an empire. We have technology, ships, weapons beyond your understanding." Captain Collins joined the group, having docked his ship during the demonstration. "That's true, Commander. Your technology is impressive, but technology can be learned, copied, improved upon. What interests us more is whether the Vorkon Empire is willing to coexist with other strong species." The question cut to the heart of everything Vashko believed. The Empire was built on Vorkon superiority, on being the galaxy's only Deathworlders, If humans could match their strength, if other species like humans existed, then the foundation of Vorkan power crumbled. The Empire will never accept equals, Vashko said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Adams nodded sadly. Then I guess we have a problem. As the meeting ended and both sides returned to their ships, Vashko felt the weight of history shifting. For 300 years, the Vorkans had ruled through fear and superior strength. Now, somewhere in the darkness of space, another species had evolved that could stand toe-to-toe with them. The commander opened a communication channel to his homeworld. Admiral Zektar needed to know about this immediately. The galaxy had just become a much more dangerous place. On the human side, Admiral Morrison received Collins's report with grim satisfaction. The Vorkans were strong, but not impossibly so. Earth had faced stronger enemies before itself. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered. "If they want to fight, we'll give them one they won't forget." The age of Vorkan supremacy was about to face its first real challenge. The news spread through the Galactic Confederation like wildfire. In meeting halls across 1,000 worlds, alien species whispered the impossible story. Humans had matched Vorkan's strength. The Empire's greatest warriors had been challenged by creatures from an unknown world. Admiral Zektar stood in his private chamber aboard the Destroyer of Worlds, staring at Commander Vashko's report for the 10th time. The holographic display showed the human soldier breaking titanium like a child snapping sticks. It had to be fake. It had to be some kind of trick. "General Thekmor," Zektar called to his military commander. "Prepare the 3rd Battle Fleet. I want 500 ships ready for immediate deployment." Thekmor was an older Vorkan, scarred from decades of conquest. He had never lost a battle, never faced an enemy that could stand against Vorkan might. "Admiral, surely a smaller force would be sufficient. These humans cannot possibly threaten the Empire." Zektar's claws dug into the metal table before him. 500 ships, General. I will not allow these creatures to spread lies about Vorkan. Weakness. The galaxy must see them crushed completely. On Earth, the United Nations Security Council met in emergency session. President Maria Santos of the American Federation sat across from Premier Chen Liu of the Asian Alliance and Chancellor David Schmidt of the European Union. For the first time in 50 years, Earth's major powers were working together. General Chris Parker, head of Earth's military council, stood before the massive display showing Vorkan ship movements. "Our long-range sensors detect a massive fleet forming near their home system. 500 warships, each one capable of destroying cities from orbit." Dr. Helen Wright, Earth's leading expert on evolutionary biology, had spent weeks studying the alien data. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand what we're dealing with. These Vorkans aren't just strong. They've built their entire civilization on the idea that they're the galaxy's apex predators." She activated her presentation, showing images of various alien species. "Look at these other races. The Meridians evolved in stable ocean worlds with no major predators. The Christek developed on mineral-rich planets with abundant resources. Most galactic species never faced the evolutionary pressures that created humanity." President Santos leaned forward. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying that Earth is more than just another death world. We're the ultimate death world. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, mass extinctions. Our planet has tried to kill us dozens of times. We didn't just survive. We got stronger." Captain Collins had returned to Earth to help coordinate the defense. He sat in the Pentagon briefing room, surrounded by military leaders from every nation. "The Vorkans rule through fear," he explained. "For 3 centuries, no species has been able to challenge them physically. That's about to change." Admiral Morrison activated the tactical display. "Our advantage isn't just strength, it's adaptability. Humans have been fighting wars against each other for thousands of years. We know tactics, strategy, and innovation in ways these aliens never had to learn." Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of the galaxy, other species watch the developing crisis with growing hope. On the water world of Meridia, Elder Kylsan called together the ruling council. "The humans have done what we thought impossible," she said, her gill slits fluttering with excitement. "They stood up to the Vorkans and lived to tell about it. But what can we do?" asked another elder. If we support the humans and they lose, the Vorkans will destroy our world. Kielsan's large eyes reflected the light from their underwater city. And if we do nothing and the humans win, we'll have missed our chance for freedom. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The crystal beings of Siliconia debated whether to share their advanced shield technology with the humans. The plant-like Verdians considered offering their knowledge of biological warfare. Even the energy beings of Plasma Prime wondered if the time had come to emerge from hiding. Dr. Amy Foster worked around the clock in her laboratory, studying captured Vorkan technology. "This is incredible," she told her research team. "Their weapons are powerful, but they're designed for intimidation, not efficiency. Look at these energy consumption rates." Lieutenant Lisa Grant, now promoted to commander, reviewed the technical specifications. They've never had to fight a peer-level opponent. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming weaker enemies. Foster nodded. Exactly. They're like a heavyweight boxer who's never faced another heavyweight. Technically skilled, but no experience with real competition. The first skirmish came 3 weeks later near Mars. A Vorkan patrol squadron, arrogant and overconfident, attacked a human mining station. Captain Jake Collins, now commanding the battleship Defiance, led the response. "All ships, this is Collins," he announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, we're not trying to match their firepower. We're going to outthink them." Vorkan commander, Captain Lokhtar, expected the humans to flee or surrender immediately. Instead, he found himself facing ships that moved in patterns he'd never seen before. Human vessels darted between asteroids, used gravity wells to change direction, and coordinated attacks with precision that amazed him. "How are they moving like that?" Lokhtar demanded of his tactical officer. "Sir, they're using maneuvers that would kill most species. The gravitational forces should crush their crews. But human crews, evolved on a high-gravity world and trained in extreme conditions, handled the stress easily." Collins's fleet danced around the slower Vorkan ships like fighters around a heavyweight. The battle lasted only 20 minutes. When it ended, 3 Vorkan ships were disabled and drifting in space. The human fleet had suffered minor damage to 2 vessels. News of the victory reached Earth within hours. For the first time in human history, they had defeated an alien military force. But more importantly, the news reached the Galactic Confederation even faster. On a dozen worlds, enslaved species looked up at the stars with new hope. The Alterian miners on Kepler 7 stopped their work and gathered in groups, whispering about the impossible victory. The Verdian farmers on the agricultural worlds began to remember what freedom felt like. Admiral Zektar received the battle report in his command chamber. The tablet cracked in his grip as he read the casualty figures. 3 ships lost to primitive humans who should have been easy prey. "This is impossible," he roared. "Send the full battle fleet. I want that system destroyed and every human dead." But General Thekmore was studying the tactical data with growing concern. "Admiral, look at these maneuver patterns. These humans fight like us, but different. They use speed and coordination where we use brute force." For the first time in his life, Zektar felt something that might have been fear. The Empire was built on Vorkan superiority, on the absolute certainty that no other species could challenge them. If humans could not only match their strength but also outfight their military, then everything the Vorkans believed was wrong. Back on Earth, President Santos addressed the world from the United Nations building. "Citizens of Earth, today we achieved something no species in the galaxy has done in 300 years. We stood up to bullies and won." The crowd outside erupted in cheers, but Santos continued with a serious expression. "However, this is just the beginning. The Vorkan Empire will not accept defeat easily. They're coming with everything they have." Dr. Wright stood beside the president. "But we're ready for them. Humanity has faced extinction before and survived. We fought ice ages, plagues, and each other. One alien empire isn't going to stop us now." As Earth prepared for the coming war, other species across the galaxy began to make their own preparations. Some chose to remain neutral, too afraid of Vorkan retaliation to act. But others, inspired by human courage, began to remember what it felt like to hope. The galaxy had spent 3 centuries under Vorkan rule. Now, For the first time, another Deathworld species was showing them that even the strongest empire could be challenged. The real war was about to begin. The war had been raging for 6 months when everything changed. Ambassador Richard Stone sat in his office on the diplomatic station orbiting Earth, reading the most important message in human history. Dr. Yilmaz, a Confederation scientist, had finally made contact. Stone was a calm man who had spent decades resolving conflicts between nations, but nothing had prepared him for negotiating with aliens who lived in fear of their own government. The message was simple, but dangerous. The scientist wanted to meet in secret. This could be a trap, warned General Parker during the security briefing. The Vorkans might be using this alien to get close to our leadership. Dr. Helen Wright disagreed. The data packets she sent contained information the Vorkans would never share willingly. She's risking her life to contact us. The meeting took place on a small asteroid in neutral space. Dr. Yilmaz arrived in a stolen Alterian transport, her pale hands shaking as she stepped into the human shuttle. She was tall and thin like most of her species, with large eyes that showed both intelligence and terror. "Dr. Wright," she said in accented English, "what I am about to tell you will change everything. The Vorkans have been lying to the galaxy for centuries." Wright activated her recording equipment. "What kind of lies?" Yilmaz pulled out a data crystal containing her life's work. "I have studied Deathworld evolution for 40 years in secret. The Vorkans claim they are the only species capable of surviving on dangerous worlds. This is false." The data she shared made Wright's blood run cold. Planet after planet, species after species, all showing signs of Deathworld adaptation. All suppressed by the Vorkans before they could develop their full potential. The Zentauri of Kepler 9 evolved on a world with acid rain and poisonous atmosphere, Yilmaz explained. The Vorkans conquered them when they were still primitive, before they could develop space travel. The Zentauri workers we see today are only a fraction as strong as their ancestors. Wright studied the genetic data. These species could have been as powerful as humans or Vorkans. Some of them more powerful. The Vorkans have systematically prevented any species from reaching their evolutionary potential. They destroy Deathworld civilizations before they become threats. Meanwhile, Captain Collins led a daring raid on a Vorkan research station in the Altair system. His team included Lieutenant Mary Bennett, a demolitions expert, and Sergeant John Hayes, a combat veteran who had volunteered for the most dangerous missions. The station orbited a dead world, its black surface scarred by weapons testing. Vorkan scientists used this place to study captured alien specimens and develop new methods of control. "Remember," Collins told his team as they prepared to dock, "we need their research data intact. Whatever they're hiding here could change the war." The assault was swift and brutal. Human soldiers moved through the station corridors like ghosts, their advanced training allowing them to fight in zero gravity, while the Vorkan defenders struggled with the unfamiliar environment. Bennett planted charges on the main computer core, while Hayes held off Vorkan guards. The aliens were strong, but they fought like bullies who had never faced real opposition. Their tactics were crude, relying on intimidation rather than skill. Collins reached the central laboratory and found something that made him sick. Cages filled with alien specimens, each one labeled with clinical notes about pain tolerance and fear responses. The Vorkans weren't just conquerors. They were torturers who enjoyed breaking other species. "Mary, get that data and let's go," he ordered. "This place makes my skin crawl." The stolen research revealed the truth about Vorkan biology. Dr. Foster studied the files in her laboratory on Earth, her face growing pale as she read the medical reports. "Amy, what is it?" asked Dr. Wright over the communication link. "The Vorkans are weak," Foster said quietly. "Not physically, but evolutionarily. They've been living easy lives for so long that they're actually becoming softer than their ancestors." She pulled up genetic comparisons on her screen. "Look at this data from their homeworld. Modern Vorkans are 30% weaker than their ancestors from 500 years ago. They've been so dominant for so long that natural selection has stopped working on them." The revelation spread through human command like electricity. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was actually declining. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer the peak predators they once were. Admiral Morrison used this information to develop new strategies. If they're getting weaker, then time is on our side. We don't need to defeat them quickly. We need to outlast them. The psychological impact on the Vorkans was devastating. General Thekmore received the medical reports from captured human databases and couldn't believe what he was reading. "This is propaganda," he insisted to Admiral Zektar. "The humans are trying to break our morale with lies." But Zektar had been feeling the truth for months. His own strength wasn't what it used to be. His reflexes were slower, his endurance lower. He had blamed it on age, but the human data suggested something worse. The Vorkan Empire was dying from the inside. Centuries of easy victories had made them soft. They were still stronger than most species, but they were no longer the ultimate warriors they believed themselves to be. The resistance movements across the galaxy exploded into action. The Alterian miners on Kepler 7 used captured human weapons to destroy their Vorkan overseers. The Verdian farmers stopped producing food for the Empire and began growing explosive compounds instead. On Meridia, Elder Kylsan led her people in the first successful rebellion in 2 centuries. Vorkan garrison troops used to easy intimidation found themselves facing aquatic warriors who fought with desperate courage in their own environment. "The humans have shown us the truth," Kylsan declared as Vorkan ships fled her world. "The Empire is not invincible. They are bullies who have grown weak from easy victories." Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching reports of rebellion pour in from across the galaxy. 12 worlds in open revolt. Trade routes disrupted. Garrison forces requesting immediate reinforcement. "How did this happen?" he asked General Thekmore. "6 months ago, the galaxy feared us. Now they openly defy our authority." Thekmore studied the tactical displays with growing despair. "The humans changed everything, Admiral. They showed the galaxy that we could be beaten. Once that fear was gone, our control crumbled. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. Dr. Foster's analysis of captured Vorkan genetic material revealed something that shook the foundation of their empire. "General Parker," she announced during a military briefing, "the Vorkans aren't just getting weaker. They're becoming sterile. Their birth rates have been declining for decades. At this rate, their population will collapse within a century." The information leaked to the Galactic Confederation within days. Species that had lived under Vorkan rule for generations suddenly realized that their oppressors were a dying race, clinging to power through fear and tradition. On the destroyer of air, World's Admiral Zektar received the final insult. A message from the human Admiral Morrison, transmitted on all frequencies so the entire galaxy could hear it. "Admiral Zektar," Morrison said calmly, "your empire is built on lies. You are not the galaxy's apex predators. You are not invincible warriors. You are a dying species that has survived by keeping others weak." She paused, letting the words sink in across 1,000 worlds. "Humanity offers you a choice. End your empire peacefully and join the galaxy as equals, or fight a war. You cannot win against opponents you cannot defeat. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. The galaxy has waited 3 centuries for freedom, and we will not wait much longer." The message ended, leaving Zektar alone with the truth he had spent his entire life denying. The Vorkan Empire was finished, destroyed not by superior weapons or larger fleets, but by a simple, devastating reality. They were no longer the strongest species in the galaxy. The final battle never came. Instead, Admiral Zektar found himself standing in the Great Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation, facing representatives from 40 different species. For the first time in 3 centuries, the hall was not filled with fear but with hope. Ambassador Richard Stone walked to the center of the chamber, carrying the new galactic charter that would reshape civilization. Behind him stood Captain Jake Collins, now promoted to Admiral, and Dr. Helen Wright, whose research had exposed the truth about Vorkan decline. "Citizens of the galaxy," Stone began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. "We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals seeking a better future." Admiral Zektar sat in the Vorkan delegation section, his massive frame somehow looking smaller than before. Beside him, General Thekmore stared at the floor, unable to meet the eyes of species his forces had oppressed for generations. The transformation had happened faster than anyone expected. Once the galaxy learned that Vorkans were not invincible, their empire collapsed like a house of cards. World after world declared independence. Garrison commanders found themselves outnumbered and abandoned by their own high command. Elder Kylson of the Meridians rose to speak. For 200 years, my people lived in fear of Vorkan retaliation. We gave them our rare minerals, our young workers, our dignity. Today we reclaim all of it. The Altarian representative, a woman named Telvara, stood next. The mining colonies are free. Our children will grow up knowing they can reach for the stars instead of digging in darkness for their masters. Admiral Collins listened to each speech with mixed emotions. Humanity had won a great victory, but he knew the real work was just beginning. Building a new galactic order would be harder than destroying the old one. Dr. Amy Foster had spent the last month on the Vorkan homeworld of Kardesh, studying their civilization firsthand. What she found surprised everyone, including the Vorkans themselves. The planet that once seemed so deadly to other species is actually less dangerous than Earth, she reported to the assembly. Kardesh has high gravity and frequent storms, but it lacks the extreme temperature variations, radiation exposure, and geological instability that shaped human evolution. She activated a holographic display showing comparative data. Modern Vorkans are adapted to their world, but they are not the ultimate survivors they believed themselves to be. Earth's environmental pressures were more severe in almost every category. The revelation was devastating to Vorkan pride, but it also offered them something they had never expected: understanding. For the first time, they realized that their strength was not a gift from the gods, but simply an adaptation to their environment, no more special than any other species' survival traits. General Thekmore finally stood to address the assembly. His voice was quiet, lacking the commanding roar that had once terrified worlds. I have conquered 12 species in my career, he said. I believed it was our right, our destiny as the galaxy's strongest warriors. I was wrong. He looked directly at Admiral Collins. The humans showed us that strength without wisdom is worthless. We used our power to dominate when we should have used it to protect. We created an empire of fear when we could have built a community of cooperation. The words carried weight because they came from one of the most feared Vorkan commanders. Species that had suffered under his rule watched in amazement as he acknowledged their pain and accepted responsibility for centuries of oppression. Ambassador Stone presented the new Galactic Charter, a document that prohibited species-based dominance and established principles of self-determination. Dr. Wright had contributed scientific protocols for identifying and protecting developing civilizations, ensuring that no species would be suppressed before reaching its potential. This charter recognizes that diversity of experience strengthens us all, Stone explained. Deathworld species like humans and Vorkans have survival advantages, but waterworld species like the Meridians have engineering insights we lack. Crystal. Beings like the silicates understand energy in ways biological species cannot imagine. The voting process took 3 days. One by one, species that had been silent under Vorkan rule found their voices again. The charter passed with support from 38 of the 40 represented civilizations. Only 2 species abstained, and significantly, both were former Vorkan client races who needed time to overcome centuries of conditioning. Admiral Zektar was the last to cast his vote. The former emperor of the galaxy stood slowly, his massive, frame-casting shadows across the chamber floor. Every eye in the hall focused on him as he reached for the voting crystal. The Vorkan people accept this charter, he said simply. We ask only for the chance to prove that we can change. The hall erupted in celebration, but the real work was just beginning. Earth became the unofficial mediator of galactic disputes, with human diplomats and military advisors helping former Vorkan colonies establish their own governments. Admiral Collins found himself commanding joint training exercises where former enemies learned to work together. Vorkan soldiers, stripped of their empire but not their strength, began learning cooperation instead of domination. "It's strange," Sergeant John Hayes observed, watching a Vorkan instructor teaching human recruits advanced combat techniques. 6 months ago they were trying to kill us. Now they're showing us how to fight better. Collins nodded. Fear makes enemies. Respect makes allies. Dr. Foster established the Galactic Biological Survey, an organization dedicated to studying Deathworld species throughout the galaxy. Her research suggested that humanity and the Vorkans were not unique. Other extreme environments had likely produced equally remarkable species in unexplored regions of space. "The galaxy is bigger than we imagined," she reported to the United Nations. "There may be species out there that make both humans and Vorkans look weak by comparison, but if we're working together instead of fighting each other, we'll be ready for whatever we find." The transformation of Vorkan society proved to be the most challenging aspect of the new order. Generations of warriors had to learn new roles in a galaxy that no longer needed conquerors. Some adapted easily, becoming explorers, teachers, and protectors. Others struggled with the loss of their traditional identity. General Thekmore became an unlikely leader in this transformation. He established training programs where former Vorkan soldiers learned to use their strength for construction instead of destruction, protection instead of conquest. "We spent 3 centuries breaking things," he told his troops. "Now we must learn to build them." 5 years after first contact, Ambassador Stone delivered the keynote address at the First Free Galactic Assembly. The hall was twice as large as before, accommodating representatives from over 100 species, many of whom had been discovered since the end of Vorkan isolation policies. "We have learned that true strength comes not from inspiring fear, but from fostering unity," Stone declared. "The Vorkans taught us what not to do. Humanity helped show a different path, but our greatest achievements have come from working together." In the audience, Admiral Collins sat beside former Admiral Zek Tar, both men now serving on the Galactic Defense Council. Their job was no longer conquest, but exploration and protection of developing civilizations. Dr. Foster's latest report lay on Collins' desk, describing energy signatures from the galactic edge that suggested the existence of civilizations beyond current knowledge. New species, new challenges, new opportunities for cooperation or conflict. But as Collins looked around the assembly hall, seeing former enemies working together and former slaves standing proud as equals, he felt confident that whatever the galaxy held in store, they would face it together. The age of Vorkan supremacy was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and humanity had played its part in showing that even the strongest could learn, change, and grow. The stars themselves seemed brighter with the promise of what was to come.